Karen refuses to move the trash bin. Now she's facing an environmental lawsuit. When Amber and I first moved into our new home, we thought we had found the perfect neighborhood, quiet, safe, and filled with friendly people. But, as we soon discovered, there was a dark secret lurking just beyond our backyard fence. Karen's personal landfill. At first, we didn't think much of it. There was an empty lot behind our property, and we noticed a few scattered bags of trash there. Probably just some lazy person who doesn't care about littering, Amber had said one evening as we sipped coffee on the patio. Oh, how naive we were. As the weeks passed, the pile grew. What started as a few plastic bags turned into a mountain of garbage. Old furniture, rusty appliances, even a half-rotten mattress propped against a tree like some kind of post-apocalyptic art piece. The smell was unbearable, especially in the summer heat. I finally asked our neighbor, an elderly man named Mr. Jenkins, about it. He sighed, shaking his head. "Oh, that's Karen," he said with a knowing grimace. "She's been dumping her trash there for years." Years? My stomach churned. Why hadn't anyone stopped her? Apparently, multiple neighbors had tried to confront her. But Karen had a unique talent for brushing off responsibility. "It's just an empty lot," she would say. "Why does it matter?" Or my personal favorite, "The city has bigger problems than worrying about a few trash bags." A few? That was an understatement. The garbage was inviting raccoons, possums, and even a family of stray cats that had taken up residence in what I could only describe as the trash castle. One night, I stepped outside to take out our own garbage when I spotted Karen herself, wearing pajamas and slippers, dragging a heavy black trash bag across the grass like some kind of gremlin. I cleared my throat. Hey, Karen," I called out, trying to sound polite. She jumped, clearly not expecting to be caught. "Oh, hi there," she chirped, as if she hadn't just been caught red-handed dumping waste. "Just, cleaning up." "Cleaning up?" I stared at the bag she had just added to the pile of destruction behind our fence. "Karen, is that your trash?" I asked, hoping against hope that she would admit her mistake and stop. Instead, she rolled her eyes and scoffed. "It's a free country," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "This lot isn't owned by anyone, so I'm not hurting anyone." My jaw clenched. "Actually, I think the city owns it," I countered. "And the smell is getting really bad. Maybe you could." "Oh, come on," she interrupted, crossing her arms. "It's just garbage. You act like I'm dumping nuclear waste or something." I had to take a deep breath to keep from screaming. "It's attracting animals, Karen. I found a dead rat near our porch last week." She shrugged. "That's nature for you." That was the moment I realized Karen wasn't just lazy. She was delusional. I walked back inside, determined. If she wasn't going to stop, then I was going to make sure someone did. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Amber slamming the kitchen drawer shut with enough force to rattle the silverware. She stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at Karen's ever-growing trash empire. "I can't take this anymore," she muttered. "Our backyard smells like a landfill. If she won't listen to us, maybe she'll listen to the entire neighborhood." I nodded, already scrolling through my phone. It was time to get the HOA involved. Now, let me be clear, I hate HOAs. In most situations, they're just a bunch of power-hungry busybodies with nothing better to do than argue about mailbox colors. But for once in my life, I was grateful for their existence, because if there was one thing an HOA loved, it was enforcing rules. I sent an email outlining Karen's literal environmental hazard, attaching photos of the garbage pile, the raccoons we had caught on camera, and the suspicious liquid that had started oozing from a busted trash bag after a particularly hot day. Within a few hours, I had a response. There would be a meeting that evening. Word spread quickly. By the time Amber and I arrived at the clubhouse, it was standing room only. Half the neighborhood had shown up. I spotted familiar faces, Mr. Jenkins, who had warned me about Karen, Mrs. Rodriguez, who lived 2 houses down and often complained about the smell, and even the elderly couple from the corner lot who never left their house unless absolutely necessary. That's how bad it had gotten. People who barely spoke to one another were united in their hatred for Karen's garbage pile. And then, of course, she showed up. Karen stormed in wearing oversized sunglasses and an expression of pure entitlement, flopping dramatically into a chair as if she were the victim in all of this. "All right," she sighed, crossing her arms. "Let's get this over with." The HOA president, Mr. Campbell, cleared his throat. "Karen, we've received multiple complaints about the excessive waste being dumped on the vacant lot behind your house. We need to discuss." "Oh my God," Karen groaned, throwing her hands up. "Are we really wasting an entire meeting on this? It's trash. It decomposes. What? Are you all allergic to nature now?" Amber clenched her fists beside me. "Nature," she snapped. "Nature is trees and fresh air. What you're doing is turning our neighborhood into a toxic waste zone." Karen scoffed. "Oh, please. You people are just looking for something to complain about." That's when Mr. Jenkins stood up, his voice shaky but firm. "My wife has asthma, Karen. The smell is making it hard for her to breathe." "Then move," she snapped, completely unapologetic. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. This woman had zero shame. Mrs. Rodriguez shot up from her seat. "You dumped a moldy couch in that lot last week. Do you have any idea what kind of bacteria is probably growing in that mess?" Karen rolled her eyes. "It's not hurting anyone." That was the final straw. I pulled out my phone, opened my camera roll, and cast a series of images onto the projector screen at the front of the room. The crowd gasped as one. The pictures were undeniable. Bags of trash spilling onto the grass. A swarm of flies hovering over an open container of God knows what. A family of raccoons nesting inside an old dresser she had dumped. Karen went rigid. "You want to tell us again how it's not hurting anyone?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. For the first time, Karen looked genuinely nervous. But true to form, she doubled down. "This is harassment," she shrieked. "You're all ganging up on me because you don't like me." Oh, the irony. Mr. Campbell sighed, rubbing his temples. "Karen, this is an official HOA violation. You have 1 week to remove the trash or face fines." Karen shot to her feet, face red with fury. "Oh, you think a fine is going to scare me? I'll fight this. You'll see." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the whole room shook. Amber exhaled slowly. Well, that went well. I wasn't so sure. If I had learned anything about Karen in the past few weeks, it was that she never backed down without a fight. And I had a sinking feeling she was about to make things so much worse. I knew Karen wasn't going to take the HOA's warning seriously, but I still held on to a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd come to her senses and remove the trash. After all, the entire neighborhood had turned against her. How could she possibly keep digging her heels in? Well, as it turns out, Karen had no limits. The day after the meeting, Amber and I woke up to something that made my blood boil. Instead of removing the garbage, Karen had added even more trash to the lot. And not just regular household garbage. She had dumped an entire broken-down patio set, a pile of old car tires, and several black trash bags filled with who knows what. It was as if she had gone out of her way to make a point. She wasn't just ignoring us. She was escalating. Amber stood by the window, gripping her coffee mug so tightly I thought it might shatter. "She's doing this on purpose," she whispered. I sighed, rubbing my temples. "She wants a fight? She's about to get one." I grabbed my phone and dialed the city's environmental department. Enough was enough. 3 days later, a white government vehicle rolled up in front of Karen's house. Out stepped a city inspector, clipboard in hand, wearing a bright orange vest, and an expression of pure no-nonsense authority. I watched from my porch, heart pounding with anticipation, as he made his way toward the vacant lot. Karen must have spotted him too, because she came stomping outside like a wild animal ready to attack. "Excuse me, can I help you?" she snapped, marching up to the inspector with crossed arms. He barely glanced at her before pulling out a measuring tape and jotting down notes. "I'm with the city's environmental enforcement team. We've received multiple complaints about illegal dumping on this lot." Karen let out a dramatic gasp. "Illegal? This is just some harmless trash. It's not like I'm dumping toxic waste." The inspector raised an eyebrow and gestured toward a leaking garbage bag filled with something green and suspiciously foul-smelling. "Ma'am, do you even know what's in these bags?" Karen scoffed. "It's just normal household garbage." The inspector gave her a deadpan look. "Then why does it smell like a landfill?" Karen opened her mouth, then shut it. For once, she had nothing to say. Meanwhile, Amber and I had casually made our way over, pretending to be innocent bystanders. But the moment Karen saw us, she exploded. "Oh, I see what's happening here. It's them, isn't it?" she screeched, pointing a shaking finger at us. "They're the ones harassing me. They've been complaining because they don't like me. They're making up lies." The inspector ignored her meltdown and continued taking notes. Then, in a calm voice, he said the words that made my entire week. "Ma'am, you are in direct violation of multiple city codes, including illegal waste disposal, improper hazardous waste management, and failure to comply with sanitation laws. This lot is not your personal landfill." Karen's face turned beet red. "I have rights." "Yes, you do," the inspector said, flipping to the next page of his clipboard. "And one of those rights includes receiving a formal citation for your gross negligence. You have 14 days to remove this waste, or the city will escalate this to an environmental lawsuit." The look on Karen's face was priceless. But instead of backing down like a sane person, she doubled down. "This is an outrage," she screeched. "I refuse to be bullied by this town. You can't force me to move my trash." The inspector sighed, clearly so done with her nonsense. "Then we'll see you in court, ma'am." I thought, surely this is it. She's got a government official threatening legal action. There's no way she'll keep this up. Oh, but she did. Not only did Karen refuse to remove the garbage, she actually started bringing in more. I kid you not, the very next night, Amber caught her dragging another trash bag onto the pile. "She's insane," Amber muttered as we watched from our window. "She's actually insane." We weren't the only ones noticing either. The city had started surveillance on the lot, meaning Karen was being watched. And within a week, it all came crashing down. At exactly 7 a.m. on a Thursday morning, 3 official city vehicles pulled up. Out stepped a full team of environmental officials, a sanitation officer, and 2 police officers. I nearly spilled my coffee. Oh my God, this is it. Karen ran outside in a bathrobe, hair sticking up in every direction. "What the hell is this?" she screamed. One of the officers, a tall man with sunglasses, stepped forward. "Ma'am, we have photographic evidence that you have continued to dump waste despite multiple warnings. The city is officially filing an environmental lawsuit against you." Karen's jaw dropped. "You're joking." The officer's expression didn't change. "You are being charged with illegal dumping, property damage, and multiple sanitation code violations. If convicted, you could face up to $10,000 in fines and potential jail time." Karen actually staggered backward. For the first time since this nightmare started, she looked terrified. "But it's just trash," she mumbled. "Tell it to the judge," the officer said. And with that, the team began taking photos, collecting samples, and preparing the lot for a full environmental cleanup. Amber nudged me. "You know what the best part is?" I grinned. "She's gonna have to pay for all of this." Because yes, not only was Karen being sued, but she was also being charged for the full cost of the cleanup. For once in my life, I had zero sympathy. Karma had arrived. The thing about karma is that it doesn't just knock on your door, it kicks it down and drags you out screaming. And Karen? Oh, she was about to experience the full force of divine retribution. The environmental lawsuit wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It was a full-blown legal nightmare. The city had mountains of evidence against her. Photos, videos, even time-stamped reports from sanitation officers detailing the extent of her illegal dumping. And since the property technically belonged to the city, Karen wasn't just breaking HOA rules anymore. She was committing an actual crime. It didn't take long before she realized just how deep she had dug her own grave. Karen, in classic Karen fashion, thought she could talk her way out of it. So when the court date arrived, she marched into the courtroom like she was about to sue the entire city for harassment. Amber and I were there too, sitting in the back with a few other neighbors who had come to witness the downfall of our least favorite person. The moment Karen's case was called, she launched into a dramatic rant. "This is ridiculous," she shouted, throwing her hands up. "I am a victim of a neighborhood conspiracy. These people have been out to get me from the moment I moved in. This is just a bunch of busybodies trying to control what I do with MY trash." The judge, an older woman who looked like she had zero patience for nonsense, narrowed her eyes. "Ma'am, are you suggesting that you are being unfairly targeted for violating multiple sanitation laws?" "Yes," Karen huffed. "It's my trash. I can put it where I want." The judge blinked. "No, you can't." The entire courtroom went dead silent. Karen's face twitched. "But it's just trash." The city lawyer stood up, clearing his throat. "Your Honor, we have extensive photographic evidence proving that the defendant has been illegally dumping waste for months. The city has repeatedly issued warnings, which she ignored. She was caught on camera continuing to dump garbage even after being served a citation. And then he dropped the bombshell. Furthermore, we have obtained an additional complaint from the actual property owner. He is also suing the defendant for property damage and cleanup costs, which are estimated to be over $15,000. Karen's smug expression vanished. The judge flipped through the case file. "Ms. Karen, you are facing multiple charges, including illegal dumping, failure to comply with environmental regulations, and trespassing. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Karen opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. This isn't fair," she finally blurted out. The judge sighed. "Ma'am, fairness would have been following the law in the first place. You blatantly ignored every warning. You doubled down, and now you're facing the consequences. That is entirely your doing." Then came the verdict. Karen was ordered to pay $10,000 in city fines, cover the full cleanup costs of the lot, another $15,000, compensate the property owner for damages, an additional $5,000, serve 200 hours of mandatory community service with the sanitation department. The best part, the judge denied her appeal request and warned her that if she failed to comply, she could be sentenced to jail time. Karen was destroyed. After the ruling, Karen tried to act tough, but reality hit fast and hard. The city wasted no time in getting the lot cleaned up. Within a week, sanitation crews arrived with bulldozers, dump trucks, and hazmat suits. Yes, hazmat suits. Because Karen's garbage pile had become a biohazard. The neighborhood watched from their porches as the trash mountain was finally removed. Karen? She was forced to stand there and watch as her personal landfill was obliterated. Then came the final nail in the coffin. Since Karen had wasted thousands of dollars on legal fees, fines, and cleanup costs, she was completely broke. The house she had smugly bragged about, she had to sell it. The neighbors didn't even try to hide their relief when the for sale sign went up in her yard. The day she moved out, Amber and I watched from our porch, drinking coffee with the biggest smiles on our faces. As Karen's car pulled away, Amber raised her mug. "To karma," she said. I grinned. To never smelling garbage in our backyard again. The best part? The vacant lot didn't stay vacant for long. With Karen out of the picture, the HOA and a few community volunteers turned it into a community garden. Now, instead of rotting trash, the space was filled with flowers, vegetables, and a beautiful seating area where people could relax. And every time I walked by it, I couldn't help but smile. Karen had tried to bury the neighborhood in garbage. Instead, she buried herself. Justice had been served.